Behind every amazing flavor is an amazing human who has perfected their craft. Welcome to Flavors Unknown, a behind-the-scenes look at new flavors and the chefs, pastry chefs, and bartenders who create them, with your host, Emmanuel.
Hey there, welcome to episode 51 of the Flavors Unknown podcast. My guest today is Chef Tim Hollingsworth from LA. He has 3 restaurants, Otium, Free Play, and CJ Boyd's. He has worked before that 13 years at the French Laundry and ended up being the chef de cuisine there. Most recently, he has developed a series of menus for Blue Apron. I am your host, Emmanuel Roche, and if you are new to this podcast, I have been in the food industry for more than 20 years, both in Europe and in the US, and every other week, I interview trending chefs, pastry chefs, and bartenders around the country. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to it and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at flavorsunknown.com. You can find the show notes from this episode on the website flavorsunknown.com. And now, here is my conversation with Chef Tim Hollingsworth. Hi, Chef. Welcome to Flavors Unknown. I'm really glad that, we connected and you're on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
So how are you doing in this crazy time, and how have you been navigating through this current situation?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a little tough, honestly, with everything going on. There's a lot of pressure and a lot of stuff on our plate with the COVID and with all the restrictions and opening and closing and, being allowed to operate, not being allowed to operate, all of those, different restrictions that are put on by the government. Obviously, I think our first and foremost thing we want to do is just make sure that everybody's safe. So, making sure that all of our employees are safe, making sure all of our friends and family and loved ones are safe as well. So I think that's been a huge priority for us, trying to think about the safety and the right time and reopen. We've been closed since March. So, it's been quite a while, and we're gearing up to reopen, but it's also, we want to make sure that we do it correctly. It's a heavy cost to reopen the restaurant. That opening cost is going to be steep just to get everything going. You want to make sure that that Los Angeles isn't going to shut down again for outdoor dining. If that's the case, then that's going to be a huge problem for us, and we want to make sure that we sort of bypass those problems.
Are your 3 restaurants closed, like Otium and Free Play and CJ Boyd's? Are they all closed at the moment?
They are all closed at the moment. Yes.
So are you even considering? I know for Otium, which is kind of, fine dining and so on, but are you considering changing some a business model of any of your restaurants in reopening phase when you're going to hit that mark?
Number one, I think everybody sort of needs to rethink what they're doing with the restrictions, the way that they are, and, limiting to sort of outdoor dining, and then, moving into indoor, and then the spacing that's required. Obviously, we're not going to be able to generate, and, people's comfortability between going out to eat and just making sure that everybody's safe. First and foremost, our employees, and then our guests is really a big deal. And you're thinking about how we do that. Well, we obviously need to do less covers than we did before. We need to figure out a safe way for people to enter and exit and enjoy their dining experience. So for us, and for a lot of the restaurants and my friends that I've talked to, really rethinking the model of what a restaurant is today and how we've been approaching it. There's been a lot of broken systems within restaurants that have been carried through for generations at this point. And, ultimately, looking at how we restructure operational things as well as our offering. So, with speaking specifically on our offerings, I think, thinking about things that we haven't done before. We've never done takeout at Otium. And, that's something that is going to be built back into the model. And I think it's going to be a necessity in moving forward, at least for the foreseeable future.
Would you consider Otium like a fine dining, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a contemporary fine dining restaurant. It's not a classic fine dining restaurant in the sense of maybe my pedigree and working at the French Laundry. That's definitely a higher caliber. but this is, maybe a more comfortable version of dining. And I also think of it as a restaurant where you can, go sit at the bar, have a beer and a roast chicken, or a few snacks and be on your way. So it could be that neighborhood restaurant for you. And then it could also be that special occasion restaurant for you. So, really, really trying to diversify and really making sure that we're accepting to everybody. I mean, I think to me, I mean, not all restaurants, but to me, the goal with the restaurant when we opened up Otium is just for it to be approachable. And I think that the approachability of, we save specific seats for walk-in guests. We have stuff that are, things that are definitely more large format and for, larger groups and parties. But we also have things that are, for the single diner that might come in, maybe somebody's on a business trip or maybe somebody lives next door and just wants to pop by and, have a quick meal. Ultimately, we're trying to be that restaurant for both of those people.
And because you are, I say, more approachable, from a fine dining, perspective, would it make it easier for you, like, to switch to the new business model of takeout?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's certain items, again, that roast chicken that we have on the menu, I think that's perfect to go. I've definitely, taken it home, several times and seen the way that it travels and, and ate that for dinner with my family when I got home. So I think that that dish to me really screams approachability and sort of kind of something that I could eat once a week. And, a good classic sort of roast chicken is one of my favorite things. So I think that specific item right there is something that we can kind of base our to-go menu off of, items like that. And, there's other items that wouldn't necessarily be to go, and won't travel well, maybe are a little bit more complicated to reheat or to cook in general, or will carry over. So all of those things, I think, when thinking about a to-go menu, you can't just dream up exactly what you want to go because a lot of those things don't travel. I'm not going to be selling bellinis with caviar to go. It's not something I don't want to reheat a bellini, but that's not to say that we can't do caviar, right? Caviar and some classic accoutrements, or even done in a creative way, is going to be super delicious at your house. And it's going to give people the opportunity. I think people right now are hopefully, this goes against, what I do for a living to a certain extent, but, it is important to me, and it's important to me in our family, and it's important how I raised my kids and how I was raised. And I think, it's very important for people to eat at home together and have nice meals. And I think that you've seen a lot of restaurants pivot and offer those offerings to to their guests. And I think that's exciting. That's exciting that you don't necessarily have to go out to, have an amazing experience. Before, I think a lot of us would think of takeout food as takeout food. And it is what it is, and it is what it's worth. But I think that we've seen that takeout game definitely stepped up by some of my peers that have really, executed great quality products and meals, celebrating local farmers, and that's been exciting to see.
Are you going to reach out to your long timer, like, customers, to try to understand what they want to get, on the menu for the takeout?
Yeah, I think we'll do an email blast with sort of a survey that will kind of ask the clients what we're looking for. I think, what they're looking for, what they would be excited to come back to Otium. And we have a lot of people reaching out to us on social media and via email, through our website and stuff like that. And it's just, it's exciting and touching, the amount of people that have reached out to us and just offered their support and their love and saying that they'll be there when we're ready to open. And, that means a lot to me personally. It means a lot to our staff. And, I think that's going to be very important for us, being able to bring the people that we have. I mean, we're a large restaurant. We have, many employees, but I like to think of it as a family environment and family atmosphere. And I think that I take pride in. And it's something that, when other people are noticing that, it makes me really happy.
And you have been really engaged with your customers online, and I think you have a YouTube channel, correct?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think we started it out just sort of as something to do when Carl would first started, and it's not like we haven't thought of doing it before. Just we've been pretty busy, so COVID presented an opportunity for us to spend more time and to be able to explore different things that we've done in the past or we wanted to do we wanted to do. So we took advantage of starting our YouTube channel. Our kids are fairly young, so it's difficult to cook with them and with their attention spans and stuff like that, and certainly filming it. They're 4, 3, and 8 months. So these kids, they enjoy being around the food. They enjoy cooking the food, but they're like I said, their attention span is shorter. But I think the promising thing that we've seen out of it all is really we've seen what people have wanted us to show. Like making a fried chicken, making my mom's banana bread recipe, how to poach an egg, just different sort of dishes or techniques that might be really usable for people to understand how to do at home. And I think the purpose of it is really to share, with people a view into our lifestyle and how we approach it. Hopefully that inspires people, to eat dinner at home and to, I can't tell you the amount of people that have sent me videos of them and their, maybe their kids watching Hollingsworth House as they're preparing dinner. And it's just like, if that's inspiring other families to cook together as a family, I mean, I couldn't ask for more. And it's been really special to see. And, I think the icing on top of the cake is going to be the memories that we have documented at this point. We're going to be able to show the kids in 10, 15 years, look, this is what we're doing. And, my kids, they love to watch YouTube and, all these kids opening up different toys and, playing with different things and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, I'm explaining my son doesn't, he's still young, so he doesn't quite put the two together, but my daughter certainly, understands. She's coming up on 5 and she certainly understands that it's like, hey, look, like, look at these videos. Kids are watching you on YouTube cooking stuff. And that's what you're doing with other family. How cool is that? She gets, kind of shy about it and real cute. And, I love it.
So what are you cooking during, what have you been cooking during this time? What kind of dishes, I have to say, bring you comfort at home?
I mean, I think for me, it's always about kind of what everybody else wants. Cooking for people gives me that instant gratification. So, and I enjoy the cooking. I enjoy the process of cooking. It could take me, I could spend 2 days making something, or I can cook something in 20 minutes and, both of them make me happy. I'll go into it and approach it with different mindsets. One is, just getting the job done and kind of busting it out. And the other one is, maybe exploring something or maybe really taking my time and putting a lot into it. Obviously both of those scenarios require a different set of time skills. But I think, for me, I've been enjoying cooking all sorts of things, and I can sit here and list a bunch of stuff. I just made ramen for lunch. Last night we made beef ribs. The day before that, we made marinated tri-tip that we grilled. Tonight, I think we're going to do, my wife wanted fajitas, so we're going to make fajitas. And, it's just, it's constant different things and utilizing pantry items. It's fun to do leftovers. We had some apples that were, needed to be used. I made an apple tart tatin a couple days ago. We finished that off last night. And it's just, it's cooking. It's showing the kids the different things. I made a roasted chicken with truffles for my wife the other day. I've been with her for many, many years. I don't think I've ever made that for her. But I was like, oh, have you ever had that before? Oh, no, let me make it for you. It's like, and it's fun. And it's, that kind of stuff I really enjoy. It's like presenting something to somebody. On our YouTube channel, we also did malfouf, which is a stuffed cabbage recipe that her mom makes. And, that was a fun process to get the recipe from her mom and go ahead and try to execute that as much as, as best as possible, calling her a few times in between, being like, because mother's recipes are sometimes, eyeballed, and her mom's for sure eyeballed. So, you're trying to get all the flavors, not trying to put too much of this, too much of that. And I cooked it and put it in front of my wife, and she's like, this tastes just like my mom's. I mean, what better compliment can I have than that?
Exactly. That's great. And I have watched you the other day. In fact, I was driving and I'm like, I need to get the access to the you cooking with the truffle from the Gourmet Attitude, from New York. So I attended. So you were placed on my in my car, and I was watching you cooking, and I'm like, I didn't order like the truffle in advance, and I knew I would not have the time. But yeah, that's great. Do you do a lot of those demos like this with collaboration with specific ingredients or equipment?
Yeah, definitely. I think whenever the purveyors, that it's not like I'm going out there and trying to get the product for them, but when I'm approached from our purveyors, people, Celine from Gourmet Attitude, 20 years ago, I'm talking to her ordering truffles. You know what I mean? It's like,
exactly.
I've known her for a
trust
very,
relationship.
very long time. And she's a friend. She's truly a friend. And I think that when a friend calls you and they are looking for help and support, and the last thing I want is for my favorite truffle provider and supplier to and a good friend of mine to go out of business after she's been great with us for so many years. So
Absolutely.
Not to say that she's close to going out of business or anything like that, but just to show love and to support to all of the people that don't necessarily have the restaurant still supporting their business. It's like everybody's had to pivot. So, when they pivot and I can't tell you how much I love going and picking up the produce box from the farmers around here in LA, and it's, you get the mystery box and you have a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a lot of this, and you go and you utilize that over a few different meals, and it, you're eating great products and you're supporting. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I had the farmer Lee Jones on the show from like the chef's garden. So that was really interesting as well. I've been ordering. That's, I think, how I got the idea to say, I need to have you on on the show, because you had like a partnership with when you were cooking some lamb, I think, correct?
Yeah, definitely. It's Keith Martin's lamb, purebred lamb, and then it was using Diane St. Clair's butter, some of the best lamb in the country, some of the best butter in the country, and some of the best vegetables from Chef's Garden. I mean,
yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's amazing. And you're putting all three of these. I mean, literally, this is what we ordered for the restaurant. This is what I ordered, at a 3 Michelin star restaurant, French Laundry. This is the same quality product, and I think normally a person going to the grocery store and buying lamb, unless they're going to a local butcher that might have, exceptional products, then, you're not going to be able to get that quality of ingredient, and you're only going to be able to get it at the restaurant. And I think it's also important for people to understand how expensive the product is. It's like, to get that lamb, it's expensive because of the way that he goes about raising it. And it's not mass produced, and it's an exceptional product. And the same thing, when a little pack of vegetables come in from Chef's Garden, and you're looking at these picture perfect.
Those spinach were outstanding.
Yeah, it's like what do you need on it? Nothing. It's perfect.
There's no way that you can go back to your normal grocery store after that and buy those small leaves that doesn't look like anything and taste like anything. When you have experienced the spinach from the chef's garden, and it's the texture and it's fantastic. So
good.
I'm really excited to talk a little bit about things which seems to be that we see everywhere at the moment, on social media, on TV and everything. It's you with and the collaboration with Blue Apron. So can you talk to us a little bit about this and how it came about?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was approached from their team. I have friends that have worked with them, and their team approached me and, came to me and said, hey, look, this is this is who we are and this is what we do. And, obviously I've heard of Blue Apron and followed them for quite a while and been pretty impressed at what they've done and what they've been able to do. And, we talked a little bit about the process, and ultimately, it felt like a really good decision. I mean, the reason why I chose to do it is because, to me, I mean, it goes a little bit back to what we were talking about previously, the ability to get in front of people and encourage them to cook at home. And I think that that's such an important thing. I was raised with two brothers, two sisters, a mother and a father. And my dad, was a very hard worker. My mom was just the hardest worker, raising us kids and taking care of the family. And my mom made sure we had, every single day we had breakfast. We had a homemade lunch that was packed for school until, like literally as early as I can remember, until I graduated high school. And then, we come home and we have a home cooked meal. And part of that process was each one of us participating in that meal. And, whether it be helping my mom prepare the meal or setting the table, clearing the table, washing the dishes, clean up, anything like that. And, looking back on that, there was chores, obviously I wanted to go out and play. I wanted to do this, that. But now looking at it, looking back at it, and I'm thinking like, man, like my brother's going to be here, any minute, and we're very close. And, my other brother and my two sisters we're all close. We all love to get together and see each other, even though we're further away from each other. But like, I really can't help but think it had a lot to do with the time that we spent around the table and just forced to have conversations and be together versus, kind of everybody in their own direction. And I think that, what Blue Apron does is they allow people to do that in their house and encourage people to do that in their house without taking some of the steps away from people, like having some pre-made things that are included in there with obviously some fresh stuff that you need to cook and stuff like that. So you're getting the practice of cooking, but ultimately not having to sit there and like plan out and go to the grocery store and buy this and buy that. Like all of the steps that, maybe an individual would sort of give up on, be like, oh man, I can't cook dinner tonight because I don't have anything. It's like, yes, you have to plan a little bit in advance, of course, to receive the box, but, ultimately, once it arrives, like everything's in there for you. And I just think that giving, that process means a lot to me because of, it's how I'm going to raise my kids and, how we're currently raising them. It's, tonight we'll make fajitas and, my daughter will help me be cooking and, my son will help me, my son will help me too. And my other little girl will sit in the high chair and she'll watch and, I'll feed her little nibbles of this and that, as it's going. And she like can sit and watch me cook all day. She's watched me make the ramen earlier today. And I think that's just, it's a special thing. And I think it grows and makes our family closer.
From a concept standpoint, and when you are creating those dishes for Blue Apron, how is it different compared to when you are cooking at home or, in your home or at your restaurant? Do you have, is it a different approach or not really?
It's definitely a different approach. I mean, if I'm going to be cooking in the restaurant, if I'm going to be cooking something myself, I understand my skill level, my skill set, the time it takes me to do something. I know if I'm reaching and if I'm trying something brand new, I know if I've done it 1,000 times, and I will choose accordingly for that, right? If I'm cooking if it's my restaurant, my cook's cooking, then, I understand their skill levels and their skill set and the timing of the restaurant and what we can handle and what we can't handle. That's something that we have to study constantly. And I think that the same sort of process goes to when you design something for the home. And I think it's something that like you're really trying to create dishes that people will be successful at. And I think, if somebody takes that box and they cook it and it doesn't mean that it's turning out exactly like the one that I cooked. If they feel like they're successful and it's a win for them, then I think we won, and I think that's ultimately what you're looking for is designing food that is going to be challenge people to a certain extent. Maybe the person that hasn't cooked that much, this is a challenging step. Introduce them to new flavors that maybe they haven't been exposed to before. And then, ultimately, giving them a healthy meal that they're going to be able to enjoy. And, the recipes that we chose specifically also have a lot of meaning. It's like I made the salsa chicken tacos, the baked beans on the steak dish. Both of those things are literally items that I grew up eating, and I make for my kids, and it's something that I literally had. I literally had those tacos probably almost every single week growing up. My mom was, this day we had tacos, this day we had our roast, this day we, chicken and dumplings, like in chili.
And you were based in Texas, correct?
I was born in Texas, but raised in Northern California, so near Lake.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Placerville. So to be able to get people to be able to share a personal anecdote with somebody, it's like those aren't the tacos that when I talk to my friends and I say, hey, let's go for tacos, these are the kind of tacos that we go for, right? It's like we live in LA now, then we travel to Mexico a lot, and tacos are very, very different than the way that I grew up having them. The way that I grew up having them a little bit more Tex-Mex style, but that doesn't mean that they're not good. They're very good. And I crave them, and yes, it's going to be a little bit different than what some people might expect, but I stand behind the dishes, and I think that they're great quality, and they mean something to me from my past, from my memories. And I think being able to give somebody else those memories, and who knows, maybe it resonates with somebody, and maybe it inspires them to do something else, or cook a little bit different, or make it on their own, or continue to order it from Blue Apron. I think those things are exciting, and my passion behind it was really to be able to share that and to inspire people, hopefully.
So, when I'm listening to you, it's obvious that this family dimension, this idea of cooking approachable food, bringing people together, making people happy is very, important to you. And is it like the same, I would say, approach that you had in mind when you created like CJ Boyd's fried chicken in LA?
Yeah, absolutely. CJ Boyd's for me, first of all, it's named after my grandfather, Cecil Jordan Boyd. So it's my mom's father. And, one of my, he's, long gone now, but, probably died close to 20 years ago. But some of my earliest food memories, and I think, my earliest food memory is him and making nachos, and just the precision that he had. And the guy, he's not a chef. He wasn't, by any means, but, for whatever reason, I remember him, taking a tortilla chip and, our plate of tortilla chips, and putting them in one layer, and on every single every single chip was a slice of cheese. And then, he microwaved it and then put it in, then he put like a little bit of sour cream, a little bit of salsa, and an olive on every one. So everyone was a perfect bite, and
yeah.
I still think about like the amount of patience that requires, right? So, that was, he's an inspiration to me. And I think, another memory I have is on payday, he would go and he would get KFC. And, and so one of kind of our catch slogans at CJ Boyd's is, it's payday good, and I think that's, really cool that, that's the day he sprung for it. I'm sure money had a little bit to do with it. I'm sure the health behind eating fried chicken every 2 weeks was better than eating it every week. So different things like that. But that was the inspiration behind the concept. And then, I wanted to take that kind of Southern fried chicken, and I wanted to apply it to my current life, and just living in LA, all the different cultures that we have here, all the exposure that I have to them, and how much I've learned from them, and been inspired by them. And, I think, the idea was, how do we create one item and do it really, really well, like an In-N-Out burger, but also how do we offer diversity within that? So, maybe you're not getting the same, double with, animal style every single time you go there. So this one, we have a Korean sandwich. We have, one inspired by, Mexican food. We have one that's sort of kind of just like a plain Jane every day, lettuce and tomato. And then, the one that's inspired by the roast chicken at Otium, so we have several different flavor profiles. So, the concept was, do a really, really good fried chicken sandwich and then apply these different flavors to them so that there's diversity and there's hopefully something for everybody.
You are making me hungry here. It's getting close to 5:30 in New Jersey here. So I'm like, I hopefully when we can, travel like really freely again next time I'm in LA, I have to definitely go there. I've been to Otium, but not to CJ Boyd. So I have to try that.
It's going to be delicious, I promise you.
I know that. I love fried chicken, so even if it's far away from my DNA and from France, but that somehow I have a connection with the South and the food from the South here. So
nothing wrong with that.
You have worked at the French Laundry for 13 years, I think, and. So you could have end up in a lot of different, places around the country, when you decided to open your own, restaurant. So why did you choose LA to establish your first restaurant?
Well, I think, it's a little bit of a process. It's two different reasons. One is a process of elimination. So, there's a lot of places to open, but there are also, some of those places I don't necessarily want to live at that current moment in my life. And I think, so at that current moment, I was looking for, I come from a small town. I lived in New York a little bit to open up per se, but, never really like lived there just for several months, maybe 7 months from my small town where I grew up. My backyard was national forest. I grew up in pretty country. Then I moved to Napa, and then, that's also a smaller town. Yes, I'm closer to San Francisco. I frequented San Francisco a lot. San Francisco was an option for me. I really like San Francisco. Still love San Francisco, and it's such a beautiful city, and it was definitely high on my list. New York, another one that is such an amazing place, and just the people and the intellect that people have, that New Yorkers have, and how the drive that they have, I think it's very inspiring to me still to when I go to New York and I see the hustle that everybody has. And then Los Angeles, Los Angeles is another big city. I think that there was a lot of opportunity here, specifically in the culinary scene, from what currently existed and sort of how the Los Angeles market kind of, I perceived it. I mean, several years ago, I told myself I would never move to Los Angeles and open a restaurant. And I think that part of that was ignorance and part of that was true. And, I think that, for me, it wasn't a city that put a lot of emphasis on, on food specifically. It was more on the scene and all that kind of stuff.
But the food scene was evolving though, because it's kind of like a renaissance, of the food scene in LA. There was probably a lot of things happening, at that time too, no?
Yeah, exactly. And that's part of the reason why I came, because I thought honestly, Los Angeles was the most exciting food city, or had the potential to be the most exciting food city. And I came down here with one thing in mind, and that changed. But that was part of the reason is New York is a little bit of a tougher environment, and the apartments are small.
Sure.
You
will not have like the same. You will not have the same view from your garden, in New York, compared to the one you have now in LA.
Yeah. So quality of life was very important. I spent many years working very, very hard, and I think for me, having a little bit more balance was a goal in life, and that balance would include family. That was a goal as well. And San Francisco was a little too close and a little too comfortable for me. It was something that it's still a city I love, but it was I felt like I needed change when I left the French Laundry, and I felt like, that change needed to be sort of abrupt. When I went to the French Laundry, it was an abrupt change for me. First time, living on my own. First time, moving out of the town where all of my family is. No one I know is around me. Yes, it was only 3 hours away, but still, it was a jump for me. And I was 20 at the time when I made the decision to go there. And I felt that I needed another jump in my life. I felt I needed another kind of wake up, make yourself uncomfortable and, and see what comes out of it. And, moving to Los Angeles where sure, I knew a couple of people and the chefs would be friendly, but, ultimately I didn't really know anybody. And it was kind of it was a huge change. And so that's one of the reasons. And the other reason is pretty simple. I met a girl and, I met a girl when when I left when I was leaving, I was already leaving the French Laundry. I was sort of wrapping up there and I met a girl and she's from LA, born and raised. And she's somebody that, I fell for, pretty fast and pretty hard. And, ultimately now, we're married and we have 3 kids. So, I think when
nice
I chose
story.
the city, I think I chose the right one.
Obviously, yes. So let's talk a little bit about the French Laundry, because that's 2 words that, like really resonate with tons of people around the country, obviously. And so I'm curious about how was the experience there? You said that it was, like when you arrived there, you were 20 years old and it was a shock and, probably to adapt but how was this 13 years, at the French Laundry? Is it as tough as we hear about that? It was like maybe it's not anymore. I don't know, but like a tough environment to work at.
I mean, yeah, it's a very tough environment. You have to be serious about what you do. It was not an easy job, and it was not an easy environment it's not an easy environment for everybody. I think when you get there, number one, you're not there unless you're really passionate about food and you're really passionate about, you've read the French Laundry cookbook, you've moved across the country, across the world to work there. You've already worked for some of the best people, out there. You see it's all of these things that are sort of building up. And then, you get there and everybody's competitive. Everybody wants to be the best. Everybody, nobody is there for a job. And I think that's one of the biggest things. You're not there because it's a job. You're there to get better every single day. And if you don't, there's a lot of great people and a lot of talented people that I have seen go through there or come there and not do well. It just wasn't the environment for them. But there's also a lot of people that really thrived in that environment and really embraced it. And they're able to handle the stress and the competitiveness, that place basically breeds. And, you're there and you want to be better than the next person. You want the next person's job and you're extremely competitive. And yes, it's a very hard place to work at, but it's also a very rewarding place. And when you're built up in that culture and that mindset, you might have the hardest day in your life. You might have the hardest service, but ultimately you're going home and you're studying and you're reading and you're thinking about what tomorrow is going to in store, and you're planning your day and you're figuring out how you're going to get set up on time and what new dishes you're going to want to try to put on the menu and, all of these sort of exciting things. And I think, it just creates an environment that still to this day, I talk to people and that I've worked with in the past there, and just, everybody, sort of jokes about it in one breath. And then in the other breath, just understands that that's what helped them get to where they are in their career today is just that constant competitiveness and that, that the camaraderie within that too.
But I mean, it worked well for you. I mean, you stayed there 13 years. So I guess that's you found what you wanted there, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I enjoyed that environment. I enjoyed the pressure. Those were the things that I thrived on there. And I think that, one of the other things is just the the freedom that we would have to operate within that format, and like just being able to being 21 years old and having influence on the dish that's going to go on the menu tomorrow. That your dishes, I'm a chef de partie on the cheese station, 21 years old, and being able to put a dish on a 3 Michelin star restaurant. Now, that doesn't say that my dish was 3 Michelin stars by any means, but I was coached and mentored and in some ways, in a lot of ways trained to think and develop it and push it further. The thing that I came with an idea at 21, needed to be tightened, needed to be finessed, needed to be nurtured in order to be able to be on the menu. And that sort of process was awesome. I mean, you take ownership in that. I really truly believe in that still today. The other thing is I traveled a lot. I traveled during our vacations. I would travel to France. I would travel to Germany. I would travel to Sweden, and I would just go and cook and learn from other people and see how they operated their restaurants. And then honestly and truthfully, I was very thankful to always come home and very thankful for the environment that we had. I mean, I think the professionalism and the environment that was there was just, next to none. I mean,
did you work close to Chef Thomas Keller during those 13 years?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, obviously, being the chef de cuisine at the French Laundry, I'm very, very close. Thomas is a huge mentor of mine. And, I think when I remember, growing up on that line and moving from station to station, right before I came a sous chef, literally every service was with the chef. Every service Thomas is there for the most part.
Yeah.
He's in the kitchen every single day. And, I'd see the guy go in and expedite lunch service and then expedite dinner service. And then after dinner, call the fish from the walk-in. And, Tim, what do we have in the walk-in? Well, chef, we have 4 striped bass. We have a salmon. We have, and he's like, bring me the striped bass. And he'd butcher it for the chef in the morning. That next morning, that would, that fish would be served that next day. And he's just an extremely hard worker and, really set the example. So yeah, I spent a lot of time, very, very fortunate to spend a lot of time with him actually in the kitchen, at that time. It's, during his informative years.
So what would you say would be like the biggest lesson that you've learned from, the mentoring from Chef Thomas Keller?
I mean, I think number one is just the constant push and drive, and nothing is ever perfect. And, just wanting to be better and better and better would be one, obvious one. I mean, I think he has so much drive and so much passion. And the other one was his, what we just spoke about a little bit, but his ability to like help develop chefs versus just cooks. I think a lot of really talented chefs out there, you see people go into their restaurant, they work a year, they jot down these recipes, they have this experience, and then they go to the next one. And then, you see 5 or 6 restaurants, a year here, a year there, maybe a year and a half here. You see these people and how that they work. And yes, maybe their experience is a little bit broader than yours, but, have they really been able to kind of slow down a little bit and take everything in and learn about everything else? And I think that, Thomas's process and how he did stuff really made people, I mean, you were on a station for a year and a half sometimes, it's like maybe even longer. Like that's a long time to be on one station. I mean, I don't know one restaurant in the world right now where that's the case. It's like, I'm sure it exists somewhere. I hope it exists somewhere. It was such an amazing time. And it's like, yeah, but if you're on Garde Manger and you see a year worth of stuff, that's a year's worth of vegetables that you're seeing, different seasons, different things. And like, you really, it's not like, oh yeah, I worked the summer at the French Laundry on Garde Manger and then I moved to this station and then I moved to that station. It's like, I think that, that you really take it in less and you really like, it reinforces it when you're constantly doing it and you're doing it for a while and to the point where you're kind of comfortable and you can learn a lot of the stuff that I learned at the French Laundry. was being comfortable on a station and being able to watch the guy next to me being taught and told not to do this and to do that. I learned how to cook fish from being on Grand Marché and watching Thomas train several fish cooks, and just, watching him. They couldn't get crispy skin. Him teaching them. They were overcooking. They were doing this. They were doing that. And, just watching the amount of oil that he put in the pan, how hot it needed to be. How did he lay the fish in there? How did he season? Like I watched it, and, he spoke loud enough where, other people can be learning. Those lessons are for me to learn just as much as they were for that fish cook to learn.
Is it compatible with now with like when I discuss with other chefs and they're talking about like the new generation that I think you mentioned a little bit this earlier, to say that they want to quickly learn something and move on, or spend a year and then they have the idea that they want to open their own restaurants. It seems that it's a completely different world here.
It's a different world. There's a lot more opportunities now than there were back then. I mean, at the origin, cooking, it's a blue collar job. It's not something fancy. Mm-hmm. And yes, it's been televised and, celebrity chefs and that whole era now. But, at the same time, it's like, it's a lot of hard work. I have really, really good knife skills, and the reason why I have really good knife skills is because I was required to cut a lot of things,
I'm sure your life, yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, when I worked at Cheese Station, I had to do 2.5 out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cups of chives every single day. 2 cups of chopped parsley every single day. 2 cups of chopped shallots, finely minced every single day. Those types of things that were, and that's just one station. As a commis, you're getting all of these different types of vegetables. If they're running lobster homard then you're turning a couple of carrots, a couple of celery root, a couple of celery branch, a couple of carrots, a couple, fluting a few mushrooms, like that all goes on one plate. So, so to serve the 75 guests that would eat that night, you had to have, the multiples of that. You spend basically be turning vegetables all day long. And, you get good at it, you get faster at it, and, you're not the best at it at the beginning. It takes you a lot longer. You need help. And then ultimately you develop the knife skills and it becomes muscle memory and you get really good at it. And you find the peace in doing that stuff. I still turn vegetables today. I still flute mushrooms today.
Yeah, because it's muscle memory for you. So it's probably like relaxing. You can think about something else. Yes.
For sure. I mean, just sit there and exactly. You're thinking about something else and you're just kind of going through and focusing on, making each carrot perfect, and you line them up next to each other and you see the differences and the ones you might need to go back to, the ones that don't quite make the cut and the ones that look beautiful.
I would be curious if you have like a method or a process when it comes to approaching like a new dish, like, your creative approach. So can you try to get into it and explain a little bit what's the first step, like your source of inspiration, and how do you get about, you go about like creating a dish?
I think number one, you need to be open to inspiration from anywhere. That could be you're going to the museum and you see a painting on the wall and maybe it's a specific color palette and you're like, oh, wow, those are very striking colors together. Imagine that in a dish. Okay. What are my green things? What are my red things? What are my yellow things? And you sort of figure out like, what are my black things? Okay. How can I make it striking? You're thinking, from a visual standpoint, could be one. Another thing is, maybe I look at cookbooks and, magazines and pictures of food on Instagram now a lot. And one thing I've kind of, noticed about myself is that, I get really inspired by looking at other people's work and being wrong about what they made. So I can glance at a picture and be like, oh, this is this, and this, and this. And then I read over in the recipe and I'm like, oh, that's not it at all. But that would be really good if it was that, and so that sort of generates a dish in my head that, then I go and try to map out. There's, for many, many years, it's about like taking something that's very classic, doing it well, and then maybe reinterpreting it a little bit and presenting it in a different way. And then, now it's, I get really inspired by flavor components or, the dish I did on the final table, for instance, the black cod dish. That dish is, it's essentially cod with potatoes, clams, and onions. So, not really that far out there, but, just to sort of kind of give you a little bit of history on where that comes from, like the cod itself and cooking it in that delicate manner where the fish is going to be really succulent, and then serving it with like pork crushed potatoes that, I don't want mashed potatoes. I want something that has a little bit more texture because fish is going to be, very succulent. So yeah, I don't want crunchy potatoes, but I want something that has a little bit more tooth to it. And then, then I'm going to make a potato mousseline that's going to offer this creaminess and these, this basically chopped up potato chips that are, going to add this nice crunch. And then, I'm going to take these clams and I'm going to make a clam vinaigrette with the cuisson or the stock that came from cooking the clams after I reduce it down, add a little bit of chicken stock in that to give it a little meaty quality, and then dressing it, with purslane or with sea beans and a little bit of chopped shallots for, kind of like a little bite, some vegetal qualities. And then you
won the final table on Netflix.
Yeah. And then, the sauce itself is a burnt onion puree. That burnt onion puree is literally inspired by going to Mexico. Now, we're going to taste it, and you're not going to think that it tastes Mexican in any means, but I had a habanero salsa that when I was there, that was by my friend Ivan, that was just like literally grilled habaneros over a fire until they were black, and then thrown in a blender and pureed and seasoned and balanced out a little bit. And that was a salsa. Spicy, as you can imagine, but it had so much depth and flavor, and it I wanted to go back for more, and I wanted to go back for more. There's no peppers in that burnt onion puree, and then I went to, but it's that technique that inspired me. And then, I went to a taco stand and had, grilled onions with, that were just a side, and they were, grilled Spanish onions or not Spanish, but, kind of like spring onions. And then they were seasoned with lime juice, salt, and Maggi seasoning. And this, that flavor profile, I put kind of the two things together and made that sauce that ultimately, I think, provides the depth and flavor to that dish that is really the star and brings everything together and makes it, is a dish good without it? Yeah, it's good without it, but there's nothing that kind of challenges the other flavors like this onion puree.
Okay. Again, I'm getting really hungry now. I would like to pick up your brain. As I said to you, I am asking every guest on the show here to come up with a suggestion how home cook people that are really food enthusiasts can prepare a special dish, maybe with your style, like Tim style. Let's talk about maybe someone can do a great fried chicken sandwich. What unique spin would you suggest them to make?
So I think fried chicken is a great vehicle, right? So first of all, the important thing would be to make a good fried chicken. So, doing a little research, there's several different styles of making fried chicken. So the way that, the way that I do probably most often is Southern fried. And, that could be a brine with buttermilk. And then, so, that brining process is very important, number one, because, you're going to fry that chicken. You're probably potentially going to overcook the chicken a little bit because you're cooking at such a high temperature that, you want the salt to be in that meat, and and you want there to be a window of error that's a little bit wider than maybe just normal cooking, especially the chicken breast that we use to fry, because the breast is a leaner piece of meat. So brine that piece of meat, and then the next thing I would suggest to do is just making a nice seasoning, and the seasoning is pretty simple. It's going to be flour, maybe a little bit of chopped thyme in there, garlic powder, onion powder, some sort of chili powder or cayenne, maybe a touch of curry in there, not enough where you can taste it, but just to give you some background sense, that's really it. And it's, it's going from the buttermilk to the flour to the buttermilk to the flour. You let it rest for about 20 minutes and then you deep fry it. So you can check out that recipe specifically on Hollingsworth House on our YouTube channel, and you can see that process. So, starting with that base is number one. You can't, if you don't have a good piece of chicken, then you're not going to have a good fried chicken sandwich. The next component is choosing your bun. And, there's, some people that like a potato bun, some people that like a brioche bun. I'm not going to give you any suggestions on the bun. I think choose whatever you like. It doesn't matter. If I'm not huge on the brioche bun because I don't want like a heavy buttery bun. I like the potato roll. I like the hybrid potato and brioche. I think is really tasty and people are doing now. And I think once you have that, now you have, basically the meat and potatoes of the dish, and it's what you want to flavor it with. And I think, that really there's a lot of things that can go with fried chicken, right? So I can take kimchi and I can put it inside of it. I can take a coleslaw, and put it inside of it. I can do barbecue sauce. I can do ranch. So thinking about the flavor profile, and maybe you want to stay Southern, or maybe you're of Mexican descent and you want to do something that's a little bit more from your heritage. And you said, okay, well, maybe I'm going to do like a lime crema and dress some cabbage with that, and then serve it with like a salsa matcha, like we do at CJ Boyd's. And that takes that Southern fried chicken sandwich that we're talking about, and that puts this sort of Mexican flair on it that, that's a familiar taste for a lot of people. But it's really basic stuff, right? You're talking about chili, talking about a hot fried chicken sandwich, and then, putting chilies on it is not necessarily rocket science. But I think when you do it, if you wanted to do Thai style and you did pickled vegetables and you did, like a Thai chili sauce with like some fish sauce and has like, really spicy and a lot of depth to it, I think that's going to be super delicious on it. And if you wanted to do something that's like, take Frank's hot sauce, put a little bit of butter in it, and make a hot chicken, but make buffalo chicken. Make it. The point is to make it your own, and I think that once you make it your own, that's where the key is, and that's where the difference is between you making a fried chicken sandwich and me making a fried chicken sandwich. It's really about my experiences, where I've been, what I've been exposed to, what I'm inspired by, versus what you and hopefully they're both super delicious.
Thank you so much, Chef. I really appreciate the time here spent with you. So let's finish with a series of rapid fire question, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so what is your favorite guilty pleasure food?
Nachos.
Now, okay, back to your grandfather again.
Yes.
Nachos. Okay. Anything special on the nachos, or like traditional nachos?
Good nachos, bad nachos, doesn't matter. If I go to the baseball game, I get the nachos in the Dodgers cup. If I go to the basketball game, I get the nachos from the stand.
With a nice cheese sauce.
Yes, or I'm at home making it with a few different types of cheeses and tri-tip that's been diced up on it, and some beans, and or I'm getting it from the local taco truck. I love nachos. They're one of my favorite foods. So I could eat it. I could eat that weekly.
So this one, I'm really curious about the answer, because I'm sure it's going to be very, let's say, eclectic, probably listening to you about all this world of flavors that you have been describing. So if you're open your fridge at the moment, what kind of, or cupboard, like what kind of like condiments and sauces or spices that you like to have on hand at home?
The sky's the limit on this. I mean, I think.
But I'm expecting something very special.
So
don't say salt and pepper.
Yeah. Okay. Well, salt and pepper is very, very important. Having different types of salt is very important too. If I were to just answer several items, I mean, we have fermented soybean paste, we have miso, we have seaweed, we have salted kombu, we have soy, rice wine vinegar, chili oils, a lot of homemade kind of, pickles and fermented items as well. And I think, what I like to do is I made ramen. So I'm making a broth from beef bones from beef trim. So the no bones, and making a broth with that. And then I'm seasoning it. What am I seasoning? I'm seasoning it with miso, a little bit of fish sauce, a little bit of soy sauce, a little bit of jalapenos from the garden, a little bit of sesame seeds, some fermented chilies, and then, some kind of Asian spices that I have, and I think just being able to grab these things and to build upon those flavors, the broth is not going to be the same without the depth of flavor of some of these fermented, the kombu that I threw in there before. It just tastes like beef and water, right? It's like not very special. And then all of those things. And then, I'm also adding the beef fat back into it. I took a little bit of the smoked beef fat from the beef ribs that I made. And, could I replicate that ramen dish? Probably not, but it's very delicious to sit down and eat. And I think that, being able to have all these components and adding a little bit of this and adding a little bit of that, like sometimes you mess up and sometimes you impress yourself.
What are like the 3 cookbooks that inspired you the most in your career? And of course, don't select like the French Laundry book, because I know it's going to be part of it. So, like 3 others.
Okay. Yeah, French Laundry was number 1. The Great Chefs of France was and still is. I probably have like 5 or 6 copies still. Anytime I go into a used bookstore, I always check for it and buy it. And sometimes I give it out to some of the cooks that work with me. But it's about all the 3 Michelin stars in, I believe, 1978, and the chefs and their kind of story. So that's number 1 for me. And it's less of a cookbook and more of, just kind of the stories and the history behind cooking and, these people at that time. Another one would be the Flavor Bible. So I think that's a great book for a lot of different reasons. One specific is sometimes we get hung up in our creative process, and it's important to be able to just, see a list of things that go with whatever you're trying to make, whether it be what goes with ginger, what goes with beef, what goes with, shrimp. I can just see that list. And, sometimes when you're trying to come up with things and you're trying to be creative, you need a little jolt. And that book has definitely done that for me over the years. And then other than that, I'm not going to name a book specifically. I'm just going to say that I think people should buy books in different genres and kind of exhaust them a little bit. So whether it be I'm into Indian cooking and you pick out 5 Indian cookbooks and you sort of read through them and learn from them and make a few dishes in each and see the difference in the various, you're learning about a type of cuisine at that moment. And, or maybe you're going to France, or maybe you're going to the Middle East, or maybe you're picking up and sort of understanding a culture and the flavor profiles that they use. And I think that process has really, really been inspiring for me, because, I'll never know it all, like I'll constantly be learning. And there's, so many different, I still am exposed, I've been cooking for, 25 years almost. I'm still exposed to new ingredients and new spice blends and new flavors that, that I haven't ever had before. And I think that's pretty cool,
Okay, last one. What's your biggest pet peeve in the kitchen?
Not caring. I think even if you're terrible at something, just wanting to be better and that push and that drive that someone really can't give you. You have to, it's innate. You have to have it yourself, and you have to be into it. I think that's one of my biggest things, is just seeing people that don't care and, are coming in. I think that people that do care, it's an industry where, number one, it's a service industry where we're taking care of people. That's very, very important. And number two, it's, we're spending a lot of time developing and preparing meals for people to nurture people and create an experience for people. And I think, that requires care. If you make a dish and you're just going through the motions versus if you make a dish and you really put your heart and your soul into the dish, like, you can taste the difference. And I think that it's really important that people do that.
Thank you very much, Chef, for all those good stuff and the time that you have spent. I was really excited to have you on the show. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
There it is. Me and Chef Tim Hollingsworth talking about the food scene in LA and his passion for food and bringing people together around food. If you like today's episode, please share it with another chef or a food enthusiast. I want to give today a shout out to a great forum and educational resource for chefs called The Learning Chef. It is created by chefs for chefs. They have a great Facebook page and a Facebook group, The Learning Chef. Check it out. In 2 weeks, my guest will be Chef Brian Duffy from Philadelphia. I met Chef Brian Duffy several years back at the nightclub and bar show in Las Vegas. He is a bar and restaurant consultant, and he has as well a podcast called Duffyfied Live. I see you in 2 weeks, and until then, remember that people who love to eat are always the best people.
Thanks for listening to Flavors Unknown. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave a review. Find the show notes at flavorsunknown.com. And if you want to join the Flavors Unknown community, search Flavors Unknown on Instagram and Twitter.